Batman Arkham Knight has a lot of side missions, and as promised, we're going to cover all of them. Over the next few weeks, and each part of each side mission will be getting a ranking out of 10. Every mission will be ranked based on its gameplay, story, and difficulty. And so 30 out of 30 is perfect, and 0 out of 30 is awful. And at the end of all this, each mission will go onto a league table and we can crown the best side mission in Batman Arkham Knight. There's a ton of missions to go at, but I thought first we'd start with one that I'm very passionate about. Two-Faced Bandit. Before we get in, subscribe, there's going to be a ton of Arkham content coming over the next few weeks, and so if you're into that, hit the little funny red button and like, because that also helps, and thank you for the support on all the recent videos. They've been doing really well and it means a lot. Anyway, I've been a Batman fan for as long as I can remember. I have the Dark Knight symbol tattooed on my arm, and one of the main reasons I love Batman is his extensive, terrifying, and sometimes wacky rogues gallery. And a villain I fell in love with while watching The Dark Knight the first time was, no, not the Joker, Two-Face. Aside from the Lego Batman game, this was my first real introduction to the former District Attorney, and I loved it. The literal duality between his two sides, his tragic backstory and fall from grace, are all things I like. During the opening section of Batman Arkham City he even shows up, taking Selina Kyle aka Catwoman hostage, and although his presence was short, I loved it. His design is perfect and the voice was great, and his
"Two guns, bitch!"
line before getting strung up by Batman lives in my head rent-free, and has done for years, and I have no idea why. I just love Two-Face as a character. So imagine my excitement when, as a small boy, I loaded up Arkham Knight and got a call from Alfred telling me that a bank in Gotham was being robbed. It was thrilling. Finally, my favourite Burns victim would get a chance to shine. A good but short introduction to him in Arkham City was finally about to get its follow-up. A 3-part mission where we'd stop Dent from robbing a bank, maybe take a trip down memory lane with him and discover his origins in this universe, and in the climactic and emotional boss fight we'd finally take him down once and for... Oh. It's just 3 Predator sections. Okay, well, surely they take a while and they give plenty of insight into the mind of Dent while we're taking the goons down, and then ends with a decent boss... Wait, what do you mean there's no boss fight? Two-Face goes down like any other thug? No, I don't care, he's just a normal guy. I respect that, man. So, we're not going to be talking about the Robin DLC in this video either. That's going to be another video. This is purely for the Two-Faced Bandit storyline. So, let's get into the first part, the gameplay. Okay, so Two-Faced Bandit is an interesting set of missions. It boils down to 3 Predator sections that take place in the Chinatown, Kingston and Otisburg banks respectively. All 3 sections begin with Batman being able to stop the thugs' robbery by going in loud due to the bank's alarms keeping the noise of his attack subdued. This is about all these missions bring to the table in terms of unique drawing factor. It is really fun, to be fair. Being able to just hit the thugs like a truck and use the fear multi-takedown, knockout smash, and even just combat to take down thugs is really fun. And it really gives the feeling of the brutality this Batman brings to the table, that perhaps other stealth sections don't. So it does get points for this. But after this section comes to an end, the player goes back into a normal stealth section. The banks also have cool little traps for the player to use, with Batman being able to drop chandeliers on thugs, throwing thugs down escalators, or even just shocking them half to death on the electrified floors outside the vault. It's really fun to use these things because they're different. And as far as Predator sections go, these 3 banks are some of the most unique stealth sections in the game. Fun, different, and like I said, unique. And I feel like Rocksteady did a really good job at giving these missions their own unique draw. The banks themselves are all pretty much the same. The first one is 1 floor, and this kind of acts as a tutorial to this sort of mission, and the other 2 feel pretty much copy and pasted. I know they're not, but when I'm playing these missions, I always get mixed up on which one's which. Now, is this a bad thing? Yes, but adding more floors to the banks is a fun change of depth and verticality. But the second and third banks just feel too similar for my liking. Having played the 2 missions recently, I couldn't tell you the major differences between the 2 from memory. The 3 missions all function the exact same, and this is fine. I'm not knocking that. And the banks are fun to traverse and take down thugs in, hence the reason I think Rocksteady did a pretty good job at keeping these sections fun. But overall, the gameplay for these missions is just a bit meh. And this has a giant full stop put on it when we finally get to fight Two-Face in the final bank. Before we get to that, let me take you back to Arkham City, more specifically the final Catwoman mission, where you fight Dent in the museum. I remember this boss fight kicked my ass. It was a stealth section where at some point or another you needed to be loud with a character that you aren't overly familiar with. And this created some really tough moments. Two-Face has a decently sized health bar, takes multiple hits, and this makes sense as he's been proven to be a formidable physical opponent. Arkham City Dent feels like a boss fight. Enter Arkham Knight Two-Face. Oh, and he's gone. Yeah. Two-Face takes the same amount of effort to take down as a normal thug, and that's it. I know Batman's obviously more powerful than Catwoman, but it would have been nice to have even half the challenge of the city fight. Overall, the gameplay in these missions is just okay. It had the potential to be a bit more challenging, and in all honesty, even in New Game Plus, it's a bit of a cakewalk. I do like the banks and the unique factors that brings, but I just wish there was more to say here, but it's just like, there. I'll give the gameplay a respectable 6.5 out of 10. The story of this mission isn't much better. It begins with, as I said, Alfred telling Batman that Chinatown Bank is being robbed, and upon arriving we find out it's Two-Face thugs making the withdrawal. It's a pretty generic setup, but it's okay, it's fine, it's, what more do you want? We take down the thugs and then Batman beats Two-Face, and depending on whether you beat this mission before or after the ending of the main story, Dent can have two different dialogues. Either Two-Face will tell Batman that Harvey Dent was dead because of him, with the Dent side of his personality coming out and blaming Batman for Carmine Falcone throwing acid into his face, with Batman even apologising but saying that it wasn't his fault, even though, in the words of Two-Face, he put Carmine Falcone in the dock to begin with. But if you complete this mission after the final scene of the main story, Dent will inquire whether it was true that Batman and Bruce Wayne are one in the same, before huffing some copium and laughing this idea off, since, in his words, Jim Gordon and him didn't strike a deal with Bruce Wayne to battle back against crime. And Two-Face also says he's pretty sure Bruce Wayne isn't who waits around on rooftops at night, which I thought was pretty funny. That's about it really. Usual Two-Face shenanigans. We see both sides of his personality come out, a lot of trauma dumping, and then he gets thrown into the GCPD lockup, before Joker asks the question we've all been wondering.
Impossible! Think of all the crimes you missed while capturing us!
So how's it hanging, Harv? Color me insensitive, but I've always wanted to ask, did everything get split down the middle?
Depending on when you finish the story, of course, because if you finish the story after Joker has been rid from Batman's mind, we don't get any ha-has here, apart from some words between Harvey and Penguin, and depending on which order you bring them into the GCPD in, this dialogue can change, and again, it's pretty funny. Overall, the story of this mission is pretty simple. Two-Face wants money, Two-Face sends his henchmen to get money, Batman stops him, and then it bleeds over into the flip of a coin Robin DLC. Simple enough. And depending on how you look at it, that's either a mark in its favour or a mark against it. And in my opinion, well, I'm honestly not sure. I'm leaning to the side of it being a mark against. Two-Face has a lot of cool nuances that could have been used here. Whether it be the relationship Harvey and Batman shared, the relationship between Gordon and Harvey, or even just the relationship between Batman and Two-Face that could have been explored from previous games. And all these are interesting things that, again, could have been explored. Maybe even get Commissioner Gordon involved somewhere. I'm not a story writer, but I feel like there could have been some narrative here that wasn't just revenge against the system. Overall, the story here is pretty much non-existent, and compared to some of the other side missions, it doesn't stack up. And given that these missions can be completed in, no exaggeration, 15 minutes from start to finish, there could have been a lot more here, and they could have really fleshed this out to be quite interesting. And so for that reason, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. So, in this section, we'll be talking from the perspective of a person who's decent at the Arkham games and is playing on hard on a first playthrough of the game, and this is the standard we'll rank all the missions on. I'd like to think I'm slightly better than the average Arkham player considering I've pumped half my life into these games, so I'll be taking my own skill out of the question by doing this, and I think it's the most fair way to do it, and this is a good base to begin with. So say hello to Lego Killer Croc. Lego Croc has played all of the Arkham games on hard once, and he's pretty average at the game. He's our benchmark. And as far as ratings go, 10 really hard, 1 really easy. Overall, the separate levels here weren't overly difficult. The standard Predator sections with the added benefit of the first half of them being able to be completed fairly easily given the lack of noise detection, due to the bank alarm going off. This definitely helps the difficulty, as you can, for example, wipe out the entire first bank before the alarm even turns off. So depending on how you do it, it can be seen as either a reason for it being harder or easier. The levels are also filled with different environmental hazards which can take down enemies really quickly if timed correctly. And if you do time these hazards dropping at the right time, this can pretty much clear a level of a bank for you, which is a little easy to abuse, especially in the final bank. The level of goons you face stay pretty standard until Dent arrives and makes his grand entrance, and this is when things step up. Dent brings along militia soldiers who use medics and also detective mode reflector enemies, which, depending on when you finish the mission, can be a shock to the player, as they might not have been properly introduced to these yet. But these enemies do provide a certain level of challenge to mix things up for the few final takedowns of this mission line. The level layouts also allow for plenty of vent takedowns, grate takedowns, inverted takedowns and gadget based takedowns, which can make the rooms pretty derivative. This means the player doesn't have to use all of the tools in their arsenal as much as other rooms, and the added detractor of having Two-Face be genuinely no harder than a normal thug means these levels can be cleared super easy. And again, this whole mission line can be knocked out in like 15 to 20 minutes. I think these missions would be pretty easy for Lego Killer Croc, and he'd definitely find them kind of boring. Overall, on the difficulty scale, I'd give this mission line a 4. They're just giant Predator rooms with plenty of cool and unique gimmicks to take down enemies in quick succession, which does make the missions fairly simple, if not fun. Overall, Two-Faced Bandit serves as a fun and unique set of Predator encounters, with the added benefit of having one of Batman's most iconic foes as the big baddie in the background. But sadly, these missions just don't utilise the character to his full potential. And that's a real shame, because we've seen in other media how well Two-Face can work when put into a story that accommodates his unique character trait. By no means do I hate these missions. In fact, I don't think I hate any of the side missions in Arkham Knight. But overall, this mission set just left a lot to be desired. And if we total its scores in our 3 categories, it ends on a slightly below average 14.5 out of 30. But given it's the first one, it actually goes to numero uno on the league table. Thank you so much for watching, and if you made it all the way to the end, don't forget to subscribe to find out which Arkham Knight side mission really is the best. Thank you all for your support on previous videos. It's really nice to see people enjoying the content and engaging with it. And we recently crossed the 160 sub mark, which obviously in the grand scheme of things isn't huge, but I'm really proud of that, and that's all down to you guys enjoying the content, so thank you so much. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.